People get old and life changes, and all you can do about it is prepare. My name is Mariam Hejazi. I've been helping people buy and sell residential real estate for over 12 years, and I have been loving Houston since 1987. In my tenure in the business, I have been involved on at least 20 different transactions while I'm helping family members either care for an elderly family member or I'm helping a family settle an estate, which involves selling off real estate assets. In addition to this professional experience, I also have lost four elderly family members in the last 6 years. So my personal and my professional experience gives me a lot of talking points to share with you today. And I'd also like to preface this with I am not an attorney and I am not a CPA. So if you need legal advice or financial advice, you should consult a CPA, a financial planner, or an attorney. So I have a couple talking points for you today that I would strongly encourage you to sit down with your family members and just go over some of this stuff. And I know it can be really difficult to think about and to talk about, but the worst time to learn about all of this is when you're having to put your mother or your grandmother or grandfather in a nursing home, or you found out they have dementia and they can't remember anything, and you're left with a jigsaw puzzle to put together, or you've lost someone and you have no access to anything of theirs. It can be really difficult. And again, I know this is not an easy subject to talk about, but please, please, I implore you to at least have these conversations with your family. So, first of all, your aging loved one, do they need some extra company? Would they benefit from a few home cooked meals being delivered or you going over and cooking Sunday breakfast on the weekends? The last 3 years of my grandfather's life, I went and I cooked Sunday breakfast for him most weekends. And it was time that you can never get back. And it was amazing to spend that time with him. But I also got to keep a much closer eye on him. And I was able to really keep a monitor point on his progression. So little visits like that can go a long way with your elderly one, and it allows you to, I hate to say it, but keep tabs on them. You'll notice these little differences more than if you just stop by once a month. You should start writing down, if you haven't already, you should start writing down all of their doctors' names and appointments. If you can, you should start going to their doctor's appointments with them. Take notes on what the doctor has said, what they're prescribing. You should have notes on their X-rays, their MRIs, and any prescriptions so you can monitor changes in the coming months and years. You should think about writing down any online account information. So ask your elderly loved one, do they have investments that you don't know about? Is there a stock account? Is there a life insurance policy? And this is not you being greedy. They want to take care of you after they're gone, and all of the financial preparation that they've done, it is for you and your family. And if you don't know where it is, you can't have access to it after they've passed away. So you might want to start keeping a list of all of their online accounts. You should be added, you or whoever the beneficiary will be, make sure you're added to these accounts. If it's a stock or an investment account, any type of portfolio, make sure that you're the beneficiary formally listed on the account. And on any bank accounts, make sure that whomever is the beneficiary is listed as the pay on death or the POD on the bank account. This allows the bank account funds to pass directly to the pay on death person listed on the account. Bills. Get a list of all of their bills, electricity, internet, cable. Do they have a septic guy that comes out? Do they have a propane guy that comes out? Are they living in the city? Are they living in the country? What does pest control or lawn maintenance look like? Is there any special repairman that knows how to specially repair your grandfather's 50-year-old well pump? Maybe you should get that person's information. So, any home maintenance, any specialized repairs, or if it's a large piece of property or a very old piece of property, ask your elderly loved one to start going through all of the little intricacies of the house, any repairs that were done in the last 15 years. It's just good to know these kind of things so you can either call the repair company that originally did the repairs, should something go wrong, or when you go to sell the house, you at least have some idea of some history. You might want to start hiring a cleaning service. And most elderly people that grew up in the Great Depression or during World War II, they do not want the help, but they need it. And so you know your elderly loved one best, and you know how to best navigate this, but consider hiring a once a month cleaning company to come in and just do a clean. You also might want to hire a pest control company. As people age, they sometimes leave food in the sink or food out on the table, or they drop things and they don't realize it. And you'll have an elevated pest population. So have a pest control person come out every so often. Do their trees need to be trimmed? Do you need to take care of the lawn maintenance? Because as this lawn overgrows, then as what realtors say, it's called conducive conditions. So if trees start touching the home or the grass is continually left too high, this is a conducive condition to termites, and then you have a termite problem to deal with on top of everything else that you're working through. Um, you may want to start looking at their house from a safety perspective. Does their shower need to be remodeled so they can wheel a wheelchair into it? Do they live in a really old house that has the original small stand-up tiled shower? If so, you might want to consider a bathroom remodel. And if the bathroom is large enough, then you might want to consider putting in the support bars. You might want to get elevated toilet basins so they don't have to sit down as far. And I know these are details again that a lot of people don't want to think about, but these are the real day-to-day activities for your elderly loved one. And if they fall, a fall could be really lethal. A lot of people end up passing away from complications of a fall. So you'd want their home to be as safe as possible. Do you need someone to cook for them full time? I know I already recommended that you drop off a couple meals a week, but should you just hire someone to cook for them? Um, What is your family's thoughts and feelings around a nursing home, assisted living, or memory care? And memory care, if you don't know, that is where people go when they have dementia. It is different than the retirement section of the retirement home, and also assisted living and independent living are also different setups. So you should be having conversations with your elderly loved one and with your family. And is a nursing home, some type of retirement, independent living, or memory care, is that something that everyone is okay with, or is there someone vehemently opposed? Um, I personally I was adamant that my grandfather not go into a nursing home. And if necessary, I would have moved in with him and cooked and cleaned full time for him. That did not happen, thankfully. But this is just something that you need to talk about because you will find through these different conversation bullet points that some of your family members may have very different wishes and opinions. And it's important that y'all come together and y'all are unified because when your grandfather, grandmother, great aunt, mom, or dad are very sick or they have early or late dementia, it is very emotionally taxing, and disagreeing with your family members is absolutely detrimental to your emotional state in real time. So please have these conversations. Does your loved one have any special wishes? Is there anything that is they especially wish for any of their belongings or their house? Do they want to go? How do they want to be buried? Do they want to be cremated? Do they want to be buried? Do they want a funeral? And depending on how old your elderly loved one is, some of this is probably already done in their will, and hopefully there is a will, but there are still people out there in their 70s and 80s that do not have a will, which makes it incredibly complex for the family after somebody passes away. Um, do they want a DNR? And if you don't know what that is, a DNR stands for a do not resuscitate. And some people do not want to be resuscitated. And if you need further reading on the subject, it would take a light Google search for you to find information. But um, and I bring this up because all of my elderly family members, they all had DNRs in place. Their wish was not to be resuscitated if needed. And it is the person's it's the person's choice. So these are just things to discuss. Um, After a spouse dies and there is still a living spouse, and if one or both of them were getting social security benefits, you may get a letter after the death has been recorded saying that the payments are now going to be reduced, or perhaps they may have to pay back some Social Security that was already paid to them. And this is very specific, and I have it on my list because this did actually happen to my grandfather after my grandmother passed away. It's probably something that is relatively easily dealt with, but it can just be a blow if you're grieving really hard. It can be tough to get this letter in the mail from the Social Security office in the midst of your grief saying you're not going to get as much money or you need to send us back an overpayment. So you just should be prepared. Um, your taxes when filing single are different than when filing married. So if an elderly person passes away and they leave a spouse, that spouse now has to file taxes as a single person, and that is a different filing than filing married. Also, what happens to the house after? So, do they have one house? Do they have five houses? What do they wish to remain in the family? And as a family member as a family, what is your wishes and your plans for the properties? Because people can get really touchy when somebody passes away. It's important to note, it's very important to note that as people age, as your peers in your family age, people change with age. And somebody's opinion on X item could be completely different on the same subject 15 years down the road. So it's very important to get everything in writing in the form of a will. So what happens to the house after? So let's say they just have one house, but the family would like to keep it in the family. Does the estate left behind, and the estate in this instance, I'm using this word as all of the assets collectively left behind, does the estate have the funds to carry the expenses of this property, maintenance and taxes, assuming the property is free and clear? How much does this house cost a year to own? How long can it be carried? How long can this estate carry this piece of property? And does anyone in the family want the opportunity to buy out the other heirs if they are really adamant that they keep the piece of property? And should you set the value now or should you set the value in the future? Again, I am not a real estate attorney, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a CPA and a financial planner, but these are real questions and real conversations that I have had to help clients through and my own family. Now, in addition to caring for your elderly loved one while you still have them, I'd like to also encourage you to take as many photos, videos, and voice recordings as you possibly can because you have no idea how meaningful this will be once you no longer have them. So moving on to a little bit more of a businessy side of caring for your elderly loved one. If they do not have a will, you need to get it ASAP along with powers of attorney. I'd say if they don't have any POAs and or a will, first get the POAs and then work on the will. If you die without a will or your loved one dies without a will, you are said to be, you have passed away intestate, which means you simply passed away with no will. And the state of Texas becomes your business partner, and it will make it exponentially harder on the family members left behind if there is no will. So, first of all, you should speak to an attorney about getting a statutory durable power of attorney. This allows you to do a multitude of things for your elderly family member, a financial POA, and then a medical POA. It is very important to note that if your elderly loved one is starting any signs of dementia, that you need to get all the POAs executed immediately. I cannot stress it enough. If they have signs of dementia, immediately get the right POAs executed. I say this because in the future, if you go to sell a real property asset in order to have funds to take care of your elderly loved one who has dementia, the title company may ask you to prove that your POA was executed prior to their dementia diagnosis. And if the chain of events is not satisfactory to the title company, you may actually have to go to the courts and be granted a guardianship in order to sell the piece of property, in order to have the money to take care of your elderly loved one. So, can it be done? Sure. Is it easy? Absolutely not. You're already going to be inundated with little tasks like getting the pest guy out to taking them to doctor's appointments or managing their household for them. So timing is of the essence, definitely with POAs. And then as soon as you get the right POAs executed by an attorney, again, I am not an attorney, you should start working on a will. And if your elderly loved one doesn't want you involved with working through their will, then that is their choice. But you should pair them with somebody that can help them get the will done. Like, let's say your grandfather wants privacy in drafting his will, and he doesn't want everyone else to know what is in his will. That is his right just direct him to the attorney and make sure it gets done and make sure an executor gets named. And you should also consider a secondary executor. And fun fact, the female version of executor is executrix. So you need to make sure that there is a person of sound judgment that is named executor of the will, and this person will just carry out the wishes of the person's will once they are no longer with us. People will change over time, and if you have not lost anyone in your family, you may not understand this, but you will eventually. But people, as they age, they can change a lot. And the way that you and your sibling may care for your parent now may not be the same way that your sibling chooses to take care of your parent in the future. And this goes for my generation and the generations ahead of me. And by the way, if you are in your late 20s and your 30s, you need to send this video to your parents and make sure that your parents have had these conversations with your grandparents. And as soon as you know they're squared away, then you should say, Mom and Dad, what does it look like for us? And more questions I would ask is, do I have a role to play? What role should I play? What does it look like for y'all as you age? What does it look like if you pass away? What are your wishes for your funeral? Some of this is going beyond real estate, but again, I have done this 4 times with my own family members, and I inevitably get a lot of this when I'm helping my clients through buying or selling property around this time. Because residential real estate is very emotional, especially when you're having to sell a grandparent's house that you basically grew up in, or you're having to sell a piece of property in order to fund the caregiving for your elderly loved one. Emotions will run high, and I just have had a lot of this in the last 12 years, and it is a specialty that is extremely near and dear to my heart. I have helped many families kind of through this elderly care and estate stage in their life. And so it's just something that I have really mastered through experience. So I specialize in helping families figure out how to move around their elderly loved one if necessary, perhaps liquidate in one residence and take those liquid funds and build an addition on a larger house, or sell a small house and buy a much larger house that is a multifamily dwelling, and then sell the other house that the elderly family member no longer needs. I mean, some families I work in succession with for like 24 to 36 months, and I sell multiple properties. There are families that I have sold 5 different houses for just to end at one common goal, which was to help the elderly family member move closer so everyone could care for them. So, and then I also help people with their old houses. It kind of comes with the territory. Old houses, anything built before about 1975, and historic houses. I am involved with Preservation Houston, and so historic houses can be a beast in its own, separate to estates. And Lord help us if it is a historic house that belongs to an estate, but we can get through it. I definitely have enough experience. So again, I know that this subject is not easy for the majority of people to talk with, but again, the worst time to learn about all of this is when you've lost your elderly family member, or your elderly family member has dementia and cannot remember who you are, and can't remember their passwords to bank accounts, and can't remember where the money is or how to get it. It's very emotionally taxing, not only for you if it's your parent, but for the entire family. So I hope that this gives you enough conversation points to at least start the right conversation with your family members. And again, if you are in your 20s and 30s, as soon as your grandparents and your greats are all squared away, then you need to be asking this to your parents. And then after your parents are squared away, you actually should highly consider getting a will. You never know, and it's better to be prepared. So, my name is Mariam Hejazi. I've been helping people buy and sell residential real estate for over 12 years, and I have been loving Houston since 1987. And if you found this video while you're in search of something, give me a call, send me a text or an email, and I would be honored at the chance to earn your business and help you and your family through the journey of caring for your elderly loved ones. See you on the next one. Bye.